That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see.
It is Friday, June the 17th, 2022, 2:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. Where are you around the world? It is 79 degrees Fahrenheit here in Toronto today. 80 degrees. Halloween. What do you want from Halloween? If you could sit in a room with Malek Akkad, if you could sit in a room with Malek Akkad and he said to you, what do you want? What do you want me to do? What would you say to him? What would be your suggestion to Malek Akkad? What do you want from Halloween after Halloween ends? Where do you want it to go? Who do you want to be in it? What is the story that you believe should be told? If you could sit in a room with Malek Akkad, what would you say? What would you say? What's going on, everybody? How's it going? My name's Dave McRae. I thought I would jump on this Friday afternoon as we're getting to roll on into the weekend. And this is not new news. This is something that Jason Blum had talked about or had mentioned a few days ago, or at least it was covered a few days ago. But this is what Jason Blum had to say, right? He says, this comes to us from MovieWeb, but it was all over the place. This is just where I happen to get it. It says, his quote was this. Right? His quote was, I didn't say it's going to be the last Halloween movie in regards to Halloween Ends. It's our last Halloween movie. We have no more rights to make any more Halloween. So it goes back to Malek Akkad. And what he does, only he knows. But we are done. This is our last one. And I think people will be very happy. That last part, I wouldn't worry about it. Because what else is he going to say? And I think people will likely be disappointed. I just need to say that. That comes to us from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jason Blum. Now, as we've talked a lot about Halloween on this channel, what a shock. I mean, this is, one of the big Halloween channels that people like to tune into. Well, at least I hope you like to tune into it. Maybe not. Maybe you tune in and go, fuck it, I'm going somewhere else. I mean, that could be the thing. That could be totally it too. But so when it comes to Halloween, you kind of know where I stand, and we'll dive into this in a second and our options here. But I thought this was kind of fun to visit this as we are waiting for the Halloween Ends trailer to be released. It doesn't look like it's going to be released with the black phone. Nope in July is probably your next best. your next best bet in terms of seeing it theatrically. It might release, a few days or a week prior to the release of that movie. So as we wait for Halloween Ends, anything Halloween Ends, these kinds of things are always fun to talk about. It's not the first time we've sort of discussed this here on the channel, but it is fun to kind of talk about. And, I've often said that, and if you follow me for any length of time, you know this, I have said that I do believe this is the last Halloween as we know it. Now, I've been under no illusions that when Jason Blum in the past has said, well, sure, I mean, there'll be more Halloween movies, that I've thought that he means with him, that he's going to do tons and tons more. I've always been under the impression, just the way he talks, the way that these three films have been structured, the fact that they got the rights for, a limited amount of time, that this was going to be the end of Halloween as we know it. How many times have you heard me say that? And that's what I want. I want this to be the end of Halloween as we know it. So what do I mean by as we know it? I mean connected to the 1978 original, right? So this is the end of this story. Okay, I mean, we can't have Michael going off into his 90s. I mean, I'm just saying. So I've always thought that, this is sort of, they're going to wrap this up. They're going to wrap this up. Now, is it always possible that there could be, something that's negotiated down the road and Blumhouse is back in the game and 2 years, 3 years from now, they do a sequel to Halloween? Yeah, of course. But we're talking about what we know now. What we know now. And what we know right now is that after this movie is done, the rights are all back to Malek Akkad, son of Mustafa. And what he does with it, if anything, who knows, as Jason Blum says. And maybe that anything is, or maybe that who knows that Blum is referring to is getting on the phone, talking to Jason Blum and going, hey man, I really love what you did with my property. I kind of want you to keep going. I mean, that could happen too. But again, it's what we know right now, right? So there are a few options on the table here. And if you're watching me live, start the discussion in the chat room. If you're watching after the fact, hit that comment section below. Be nice to each other, please. And by the way, there's been some people that have been accusing me of deleting comments. I don't delete any comment. I mean, unless it's like racist or something like that. And anybody who does YouTube knows that the YouTube algorithms will pick up on certain words. Sometimes you look at a comment and you're like, I don't even understand why this went into my spam bin. So if your comment doesn't show up, look at what you were typing. If you type the word stupid or dumb, or I know it, I wouldn't remove it, but YouTube tends to do that or whatever the case is. So just be aware that if your comment is not showing up, it's likely because the YouTube algorithms have picked up on something in there that they deem inappropriate, which it likely isn't, and they throw it into the spam bin. So just forewarned. So there are several options, okay, that I want to sort of go over, and I'm going to put a poll into the chat room today because I want you guys to sort of get in on this, obviously. So there are four options. Well, there may be more than four options, but these were the options. There's only four that are allowed for a YouTube poll. And the options are, you know what, let me just go ahead and, actually, no, before I do that, I'm going to tell you the options, okay? And again, I want you guys to be honest, be totally honest. If we don't agree, that's okay. That's okay. That is totally okay. Don't just, don't vote or don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what you think. You know what I mean? That's what this is all about. So the options are, and I'm going to put this in the poll in just a few moments, but I want to go over it here first. The options are nothing, right? So what do you want there to be after Halloween ends? Like, what do you want next for Halloween, essentially? Is the point of this show today. And this is in no particular order, of course, but number one, nothing. Let it rest, right? Nothing. I don't want anything. It's done. It's over. I'm fine. I'm cool, right? Number two is remake. So tell the story again. So you wait 5 years or whatever the case is, and then you remake the movie and you tell the story again. Maybe you modernize it, whatever. That's another option. Another option is you reimagine it, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, you tell the story again, but you tell it differently. So very much like that Two Dudes and Some Bullshit episode I did with Tony Michael, where, we talked about going back even further. So instead of 1978 and 1963, we go back to the 50s and we tell the story again. And, maybe Dr. Loomis isn't a psychiatrist. He's a detective from Chicago who has to come to this little Illinois town, and he's got a trench coat and a fedora. And it's a very sort of film noir, black and white film. And Judith and Michael are, there's not such an age gap. Maybe they're like twins, or not twins, but, in and around the same age, and they both go to the same high school, then weird shit begins. Whatever the case is, right? You can watch that episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. We dive deep into it, into our sort of thoughts on how that might be a fresh take on it. You're telling the story again, but you're reimagining it from a different perspective, going back to the 50s, the innocence of the nuclear family in the 50s. Television was so new at that time. It was such a different, it's sort of the last decade of innocence before sort of the sexual revolution of the 1960s. Do you know what I mean? And all this kind of stuff, and Woodstock and sexual freedom and, the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff, right? So the 50s is a really interesting sort of time, sort of the end of an era, so to speak. And we thought that might be interesting. So that's what I mean by reimagining, right? Telling the story again, but you reimagine it in a bit of a different way. I don't mean that you need to completely remove the DNA and you completely tell a story that's just nothing Halloween whatsoever. I don't mean that, but you reimagine it, right? For, maybe from a bit of a different perspective. And I kind of really like that. It's not just doing the same thing over again, right? And then the last one here is Halloween 3/anthology films, right? So maybe they just kind of set the Michael Myers thing over here for a while and they do Halloween 3. Now, that could mean they remake Halloween 3 all together, right? They just call it, Season of the Witch, a Halloween story or something. I don't know. Or they do a direct sequel to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Maybe they do that, right? I mean, I would be down for either. I like Halloween 3. I'm not a big enough fan of Halloween 3 where I feel that if they were to just remake it and pretend the original never happened, that somehow I would think it was blasphemous. Oh my God, that's how, what do you, no, I couldn't care less. Fine, if that's what you want to do, fine. But I would be open to either. I do think that remaking it, there's a lot of potential. I think there might be more potential in remaking it than doing a direct sequel to it. But nonetheless, that's an option there. Now, maybe there are other options as well, like a TV series, right? There's a TV series in there too. So maybe I could actually let me, and there's many different things we could do with a TV series. You could do an anthology TV series. You could tell the story of Dr. Loomis back in the 1950s, and you could tell the years between 1963 and 1970, and you know how I feel about all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, I want to put these up here now. So let me just get this. So I'm going to put a poll up. And then we'll talk about it here. So let me just do this here. What do you want next for Halloween? Okay, so the first one, and then we'll do the second one here. Okay. We'll add more options. YouTube, if you're watching. YouTube, if they're watching. It's a total, you should have more options for polls. I'm just saying. Although 4 is a good number, really, at the end of the day. Okay, 1 second. Almost ready here. And okay. So here are the 4 main ones that I talked about, and you let me know, and you be honest what you want. And then, of course, you can elaborate in the comment section below. You can elaborate in the chat room here as well if you want, and we can talk about it. So let's just do what these, again, there's probably 5 or more categories that we could have, but here's some main ones, right? Some main ones that you would likely see, perhaps, in that kind of a situation. So let me, nothing of this, remake, tell a story again, reimagining, tell it differently, Halloween 3, yeah. So let's do that. Here we go. Ask the community. Okay, the poll is going in. The poll is going in and going up, and I'll be very curious to know what you guys think of this. I'll be very curious to know what you guys think of this. So for me, as you know, for me, I am somebody that there's two really there for me. As you know, I'm somebody that I could not care less if they make another Halloween film. And that sounds really harsh. I've talked about this before. It sounds really harsh to say that, right? It almost sounds like I'm not a fan or something. And I don't mean it that way. I just have often said, for those of you that may not have heard me say this, that I am very content. You know, I'm a big Halloween fan, right? But I'm very content with what we have. We have good movies, we have bad movies, we have in-between movies, we have merchandise and merchandise and merchandise and merchandise. It's like Spaceballs, and conventions and masks and, the horror community. And I mean, there's so much out there to love and to be engaged in. I'm okay. That doesn't mean that, who knows, maybe 20 years down the road, I'll think to myself, I kind of miss a new Halloween movie. I mean, who knows, right? But as of right now, I'm okay. And the last thing I want, even though I'm not a huge fan of this new incarnation of Halloween, they are, competently made films, in terms of the execute. Well, Halloween Kills, the structure and the story and the script, not so much. But, they're not the worst in the series. Let's just put it that way. That's what I'm trying to say, right? That ain't no Halloween Resurrection. It ain't no Halloween 5. I'm just trying to say, ain't no Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So, but I'm just saying that the last thing I want is for this series to keep going on, and then we wind up exactly where we were before Halloween 18, and then somebody's like, maybe we should erase all the other 5 movies and pretend only 18 exists. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't want to wind up in that situation again. So I'm okay with it ending. Good stories always end. Stories have a beginning, a middle, and end. I'm okay with that. So I would be okay if they never made another one. I feel content. At the same time, if they were going to reboot it / reimagine it, because a reboot is a remake, a reboot, well, there are differences, but when you reboot something, you are just starting again. So you could be reimagining, you could be remaking, you could be doing something completely different, and they all kind of fall into the category of reboot. The more that, I think about it and analyze it. But if they were going to continue on, I would pick the reimagining and telling it from a different perspective, because I don't need them, Malek, if you're watching, not that he gives a shit what I think, but I'm just saying that I don't need for this story to be told again just 5 years from now, and maybe the only thing they change is they modernize it. So it's not 1963, 1978. It's, 2002 and 2017 or something like that. I mean, so they just modernize it. And it is about a 6-year-old boy who kills his sister on Halloween night, stabs her, whatever. And then he's run away 15 years. And we had, a psychiatrist who's Dr. Loomis, and he breaks out when he's 21. And he goes back to his hometown and he's, this. And then the psychiatrist comes back. And I don't need to see that again. Rob Zombie did it. John Carpenter's done it. Don't need to see it again. So that's why that back to the 1950s, like telling it from maybe a bit of a different perspective, going that real horror film noir 50s Hitchcock kind of thing, black and white movie, where, like I said, Loomis is a detective from Illinois, from Chicago, and he comes to this small town because, to kind of, there's a string of murders that nobody's been able to solve in this small town. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And it's all leading up to this epic sort of climactic moment on Halloween night. And Judith and Michael are in high school in the 50s. Oh, fuck, with the skirts and the pep rallies and shit. I mean, they had that shit in the 70s too, but you know what I mean? Like real 50s Letterman jacket, nuclear family, the innocence of the 50s. You know what I'm talking about? Elvis Presley and, pompadours and just like something really, but it's really scary. Like it's really eerie and scary and that kind of stuff. I would be open to exploring that. That excites me more than just doing the same thing over again 5 years later. I mean, if 30 years pass, and a whole generation and then some has gone by, okay, that makes sense to me. Maybe you want to tell the same story again. Do you know what I mean? Because you're reintroducing that story to a whole new audience. I mean, in 30 years, I'm going to be in my 70s. All right. A lot of us here will be in our 70s or 60s, or if you're young, you might be in your 50s. But that makes sense, right? But often sort of the whispers in the Halloween horror community about rebooting is in like, well, 5 years down the road or something. I'm like, 5 years? That's nothing. That's nothing. I just don't think rebooting the same story 5 years from now. Listen, of course, am I going to watch it? Sure. Are people going to watch it? Sure. I'm just talking about sort of the, just kind of, I just don't want things to get so stale. Like we've done this before. So those are the two options for me. I would be open to either just leaving it alone. Like we've got the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just kind of just letting it sit for a while. I'm good. Or if I had to pick something else on that list, it would be the reimagining. The Halloween 3 thing I'm open to, the anthology thing that I'm open to, but I don't know about the longevity of that, because again, I've often said that, you could do a whole Charlie Bowles thing, and I think that would be cool, and you could create this whole new slasher. Totally open to that. So if they did decide to go that route, I would be okay with that. I'd be like, yeah, that's totally fine. I'm totally down with that. Let's, we'll see what they do. But really thinking about like that episode I did with Tony a few weeks ago, and we had talked about that a few weeks prior. So it's sort of been in my brain now for, I'd say, a few months. The more that it excites me, because I see opportunity. I see a lot of sort of opportunities to kind of tell the story again, but just a little bit differently, and create a new version of that story rather than just a new version of the same story, if that makes sense. A new version, like you take the story and you tell it, but you add your own kind of, spin to it, rather than just doing the same thing over again. That's how I feel about it anyway. So I think there's an opportunity there. But yeah, for me, I can certainly tell you that I do not want them to continue this series. I don't want to see Halloween ends and then 2 years from now we get Halloween Begins again or Halloween Returns, and it's a direct sequel to Halloween Ends, and James Jude Courtney is back. Hey, listen, no offense to James Jude Courtney, of course. I mean, as an actor, he'd be like, hey man, if they call me, I'm there. I totally get that. I understand. As an actor, I understand that. But looking at it from a fan's perspective, I'm like, no, just don't do that. Like, don't just keep going on and on and on and on and on. But that's me. Like I always say, there's a lot of Halloween fans out there that feel very differently and think that I'm crazy and think that that this series should continue to go on, and so be it. But if I was going to continue it with, that's basically what I want to try to say is that if I was going to continue it with Michael Myers, I'd want to do something different. Like going back to the 50s film noir kind of thing, right? If I was just going to continue it without Michael Myers, I would be open to maybe Halloween 3. I do Halloween 3 first because it already has a built-in fan base. It's already in the pop culture, in the horror pop culture zeitgeist. Of course, it's not Michael Myers. It's not nearly as popular as Michael Myers. So you would have to reintroduce the story you would still have to reintroduce the story to a new audience, which is why I think maybe a complete remake of that first movie is probably the better option to go. Halloween 3 is not as popular as you might think it is, beyond the walls of our little horror, bathroom here. It really isn't. I say Season of the Witch to the average person on the street, and they're going to have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. If I say, Halloween Michael Myers or Michael Myers, they might think, Mike Myers, but You know what I'm trying to say, right? It's not that it's not popular, and it's not that it hasn't gained a cult following in the years since its release. It has. It absolutely has. But it's not Halloween Michael Myers level, right? So you would have to reintroduce it to a new audience. That story, what is that kind of thing. So maybe doing a complete remake is the best thing to do. I don't know. But I think starting with Halloween 3, whether you do remake or sequel, is probably the safe bet. And then if that's really successful, you could do a sequel to that movie, right? And maybe you have a whole new series here. You have like the Season of the Witch trilogy or something. That might be wild. But then it opens the door to, okay, can we sidestep now and do like a Charlie Bowles? You know, maybe that we have this anthology thing rolling a little bit. I'm not saying you have to do Charlie Bowles. That's the top of mind. Maybe you do like a Charlie Bowles thing, or maybe you do something else that's built into this Halloween universe. And maybe it all happens in the same universe as Michael Myers. Like I've often said, there's a lot of fucked up, weird, crazy people out there and crazy stories out there. And maybe you have, Myers isn't the only serial killer, right? So maybe you do tell the Charlie Bowles story or the Bob Schmankton story, or I don't know, something, maybe a female serial killer, but Haddonfield is a real town in the universe. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they drive through it. Maybe they visit it. I don't know. And maybe you hear about the story of Michael Myers or something, so there's that connective tissue there. So it doesn't feel so alienated from Michael Myers and from Halloween. Michael Myers isn't in the movie or isn't in the series, per se. You might see his face, his mask or whatever in like a newspaper article or something, but he's not, but by doing that, by letting the audience know this is in the same universe, in the same world, it's just in a different town, one state over, or it's in a different town 50 miles down the road. Whatever the case is, it psychologically, I think it will appeal to an audience because it feels like it's the same universe. So it's kind of connected, and that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, right? So that's an option there. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts kind of what you could do and sort of what the options are. And if I was sitting in front of Malek Akkad, those are some of the things that I would talk about. If he said to me, okay, Dave, what do you think I should do? I would probably have a few questions for him too, but I would probably say, the last thing you want to do, you've got, a real good, solid trilogy here. And the last thing you want to do, Malek, is to find yourself right back where you were after Halloween Resurrection. And so, let's tread very carefully here not to wear out this new incarnation's welcome. That's what I would say. I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do. If you want to make a direct sequel to Halloween Ends and keep going on, hey, that's your business, man. But just be warned, why did we make Halloween 2018 to begin with? Why did we erase all the sequels to begin with, right? We don't want to find ourselves right back there. So that's what I would say first. And then I would talk to him like how I'm talking to you. I would give those options to him and sort of, try to get him excited about some of those options. And maybe he would really kind of go, Halloween in the 50s, film noir, black and white. And maybe it's not a movie. Maybe it's a series, right? You know what I mean? I don't know if that would work as a series, but maybe, right? And it's kind of like, interesting. And maybe he'd have some notes for me, but he might be like, okay, interesting, And maybe he'd tell me, get me a treatment. He'd say, I like this idea, Dave. Get me a treatment. Halloween in the 50s, black and white film noir, Hitchcock, Loomis is a detective coming in to investigate. That's interesting, And he might be like, I don't know, but that's interesting. Get me a treatment. And then, I give him a treatment. And maybe from that, he's like, okay, I've got some notes, but you know what? I like this, McRae. Get me a script. Whatever the case is, that's the angle that I would take with him, is try to get him inspired about other possibilities for fear of running this version of Michael into the ground. That's me. That's me. But like I said, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts on what you would say to Malek Akkad and what you would do as well. So let's jump over to the chat room and see what you guys are saying. Should we check in on the poll? Let me put on my glasses here. Let's check in on the poll and see what people are saying here with the poll. So it says, so far we have 114 votes. There's 174 of you in the chat room. If you haven't voted yet, please by all means do vote. The poll says, what do you want next for Halloween? 27%. And I asked you to be honest. Don't just tell me what, you think that I want to hear. Well, what I want to hear is your true thoughts, your honesty. I mean that don't tell me, don't vote based on what you think I'm going to say, right? Because that's no fun. So what do you want next for Halloween? 27% of you said nothing. Let it rest. 8% of you, hang on, some more people have voted. 26% say nothing, let it rest. 8% say remake, tell the story again. 36% say reimagining, tell it differently. So you're kind of on my page here. I like that. And then 30% are saying Halloween 3/anthology film. So that could be Halloween 3, and or maybe it's not Halloween 3, maybe it's an anthology film. But like I said, I think Halloween 3 is probably the safest thing to do because it's already got a built-in fan base and you can, it's still risky, but it's not as risky as doing something like Charlie Bulls where you're going to get half the audience going, what? Charlie who? Do you know what I mean? So interesting stuff. Okay, well, we'll let that poll sit there and we'll see how it goes throughout the afternoon here. Okay, so let me go over to the super chats because some super chats did come in, so I want to make sure that I get these. Super chats. Super freak. All right. A bunch of them came in. Okay, so the first one's from Happy Sanjo. Thank you. Happy sends in $5. Says, I was able to procure a copy of It's Me, Billy on Blu-ray. Was worried I wouldn't ever get one. Lucky me. Great film, Dave. Amazing. That's awesome, man. How'd you get it? Did somebody send you a double or something like that? That's awesome, dude. Or maybe you walked into like a secondhand shop and there it was sitting there. That happened to Vince, by the way, with, I don't know if it was Never Hike Alone or Never Hike in the Snow, but he walked into Amoeba in Hollywood. And great store, by the way. Amoeba is fucking amazing. Anyway, they sell all kinds of used DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks. It's an amazing store, pop culture thing, right? And Vince said he walked in there one time and he's like, that's my fucking movie sitting there. And he was like, and it's like $35 and it's used. What the hell? Anyway, it's kind of funny. It's kind of awesome, actually. Well, that's cool, man. That's cool. That's great. My bottle of water is it's got a dent in it. It's kind of, I don't want to tip over. Let me see here. Andrew Stevens sends in $10. Thank you, Andrew. Says, Halloween series needs to die tonight. It needs to die tonight! Apparently. Vince Tarallo, maybe I'm saying that. There's a couple of ways I think it could be said. $9.99, thank you, Vince, says, movie or TV series about the 15 years at Smith's Grove. Not to explore Mikey, needs to be a mystery, but to see how Loomis went from calm, respected psych to paranoid madman who was ignored by his colleagues. That's interesting, Vince. I don't mind that if the focus is on Dr. Loomis. The issue I've always said about doing a series that tells the story of Dr. Loomis before Michael Myers is I've always been under the impression, and I think the intent of this is true, although the only person who could speak to this would be John Carpenter, is before Michael Myers, Dr. Loomis was just a regular psychiatrist. He was just a good child psychiatrist, but he was just regular. I mean, there was nothing really eventful that happened in Sam Loomis's life in terms of his professional life, right? That doesn't mean that he didn't meet some weird or crazy, unusual kids, but nothing to the level of Michael Myers. Michael Myers made him question science, made him question, the natural to the supernatural and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's in his monologue to Sheriff Brackett. I watched him for 15 years, sitting room, standing walls, waiting for this night, all that kind of stuff. And then he says, too, in the house, he's like, I met this 6-year-old child, this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, then I was 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized what living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. Now, you could take that as, he's using it as a metaphor, and he doesn't really believe in evil and the devil if he's a man of science, of course. But the fact that he's speaking this way, tells us that those 15 years, he's changed. He has experienced things and we don't need to know what that is. I don't feel we need to know what it is. We don't need to see what it is. It's much better when it's left up to the imagination of the viewer, because everything he says there, we get all we need. So I've always got the impression that it's this patient, Michael Myers, that has made him question everything that he's learned. Do you know what I'm saying? So if we were to go back and tell the Loomis story at Smith's Grove, if you want to focus on Loomis, and it's a character study about Loomis, maybe, I don't know if that would work without Michael Myers, but it can't be telling stories about Loomis and all these crazy kids he's met, because then he's going to peak too soon. Do you know what I mean? There shouldn't be a patient that is crazier than Michael Myers. And in order for this series to be entertaining, it's like you're going to have some pretty wild, crazy kids. And I've never got that impression. I've always got the impression that his life has just been normal until 1963. And so, but that's me. That's how I feel about it. And I'm not saying that it couldn't work, but those are kind of my concerns whenever I hear about doing a Loomis series at Smith's Grove. But like I said, that's me. All right. Let me see here. Matthew Farisi sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Matthew, of $49.99. Maybe this is cheesy, but I'd like to see Michael attack Haddonfield in the wake of a tornado. It is the Midwest, after all. That is true. There would be power outages and damages and panic, and Michael could capitalize on it. After all, Michael is much like a tornado. Matthew follows up with another $1.99 and says, but realistically, it should end for good. That's interesting. I don't know about specifically a tornado, like with funnels and stuff, although I guess you could have one. Maybe a giant storm. I've always thought that would be cool. That goes back to my sequel concept for a sequel to Halloween Ends 3 years ago, where I talked about there being a storm and lightning and thunder, and you can really utilize light and shadow and, being illuminated in the flashes of lightning and all that kind of stuff. You can really utilize the character of Michael and the boogeyman and the shape and all that kind of stuff when you put him in a situation where, it's dark and rainy and thunder and all that kind of stuff. So I'm always open to that kind of thing. Tornadoes specifically, it might be interesting. I did a video, about 2 or 3 months ago, where I said, what about Michael in the wintertime? And some people were like, what are you talking about? It's Halloween. Well, listen, if you live in the Midwest of the United States, okay, or you live in the Northeast of the United States, or you live here in Canada, it is not unprecedented. It's not that I'm not saying it's common. I'm not saying it happens every year all the time, but it's not unprecedented for this, for our areas to get a dumping of snow in and around Halloween. Now, it doesn't generally stay. It'll usually melt within a day or two. Snow doesn't really come and stick until December or January. But it's not unprecedented. You know this. If you live in the Northwest, the Midwest, if you live in the Northeast, if you live where I live here in Toronto or Canada, it is totally possible. And it has happened. It has happened where you get a dumping of snow in and around Halloween. So I always thought that might be an interesting setting for Michael as well. We often talk about Jason in the snow. Well, Michael in the snow might be interesting. And in the movie, you play it like a freak storm. You play it like what it would be if it actually happened. A freak storm. Well, this is unusual. It's not unprecedented, but it's kind of unusual. And a freak storm comes in, dumps snow in and around Halloween time. And then, the power goes out and people's heat is out and shit. And, you could utilize the blood on the snow and all that kind of stuff. And, it's interesting. I'm right there with you, man. I like how you're thinking outside the box. I like that. Something different, Let's see. Vince follows up again and says, of your ideas, I prefer the film noir version. It's different enough without being a total departure. The moment to do an anthology has passed, in my opinion. Okay, well, there you go. In Vince's opinion, the moment to do an anthology has passed. And you may be right. You may be right, Vince. You may be right. I think it is, if it was ever going to succeed, I think now where we are in 2022 with streaming and miniseries and, anthology series and the word anthology being more common in the pop culture movie zeitgeist sphere, I think it is more possible today that something like that could succeed than it was in 1982, right? I mean, there were people that literally went to the movie theater expecting Michael Myers and didn't get him. That wouldn't happen today because of the internet, the ease of access to information, how everybody's dialed in and connected to everything that's going on. We would know, right? If the internet and social media was around 40 years ago, we would all know that Michael Myers was not going to be in Halloween 3. There'd be no surprises. But back then it was different. So I get what you're saying, but I think it's possible, and I think they may explore that avenue. But if they were going to, I think they would start with Halloween 3, because, like I said, proven, it's already got a built-in fan base, and it's already kind of known in the Halloween horror zeitgeist. So it's a safe bet. And if it fails, well, then they failed again. Okay, not a big deal. But if it succeeds, they might be onto something. I don't know. Pumpkinhead. Oh my God, Pumpkinhead is in the room, ladies and gentlemen. Sends in $5. Says, do you think there might be another actor playing Dr. Loomis as a cameo, like in the previous movie? I'm going to say no. I don't think it's needed. By all accounts, from what I've been hearing, this is not going to be a movie with any sort of nostalgia. Of course, the fact the movie exists is nostalgic, but in terms of those Easter eggs and kind of the dropping of all the nostalgic, I don't think we're going to get. I think this is going to be very different. By everything I'm hearing, that is not really going to be the case in this movie. So another Dr. Loomis cameo, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't think it's a very flimsy limb. I think it's a pretty strong limb, and say no. I don't think so. But you never know. Dexter Morgan sends in $5 and says, how would you feel about Aaron Armstrong coming back to play a younger version of The Shape in a reimagining? Also, what is your favorite fast food? Oh, okay. Well, my favorite fast food, I don't eat a lot of fast food, to be honest with you. I haven't had McDonald's in, over 20 years. Same with Pizza Hut or Burger King or Wendy's or whatever. I don't, well, no, that's not true. I had Wendy's when I went to the US 4 years ago. When I was there 4 years ago, we had Wendy's because, you're on vacation, right? But I don't eat a lot of fast food. I wouldn't say I have a favorite really. But I will say that I really like a good pizza, I don't know, Domino's, Pizza Hut, mom and pop shops, whatever, like a good pizza with some nice really good toppings on it and stuff. Yeah. And some dipping sauce, dip the pizza. Oof, that's some good shit, man. But if I'm out, usually what happens if my girlfriend and I are out and, we're coming back from the beach or we're coming back from somewhere, generally speaking, if we're you want to get something to eat? Yeah, let's get something to eat. We don't usually go to a burger place. We'll usually go to Subway or something, which is kind of on the lower tier of fast food. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't eat a lot of fast food. In regards to Aaron Armstrong, I did like his portrayal of Michael Myers in the flashback sequence in Halloween Kills. I think it's the best part of that movie. I would be open to that. Yeah, I'd be open to that for sure. Why not? Legend Warrior 120 sends in $10, says, a Halloween movie where Michael Myers is treated more like a boogeyman myth. The setting and atmosphere would be something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 and Batman Returns 92. So you're talking a little, more grittier and sort of darker in themes and things like that. Okay, all right. Or well, Batman and Ninja Turtles are, I have to admit, that's a unusual comparison. I think I know what you mean by using those examples. But yeah, I mean, it sounds very sort of maybe a bit cerebral. I mean, there's always that original Halloween 4 idea that John Carpenter had that was a little too cerebral for Malek Akkad. But, that's interesting. Vince follows up again with another $9.99. Thank you, Vince, and says, Halloween, the night there was no way home. OG Rob Zombie and Blumhouse Michaels came together to terrorize Haddonfield, and it's down to Jamie Lee Curtis, Scout. Oh, so you're like a multiverse sort of thing. And Malcolm McDowell to stop them. Why the heck not? Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think they would do that. And because obviously horror movies and Halloween are not Marvel films, and they're not sort of, they don't have source material where a multiverse exists. When you go to like Marvel films, superhero films, I mean, they're multi-billion-dollar films. They're huge properties. You can take those risks, and people will flock. This would, I think, confuse the average moviegoer. Yeah. Why are there 2 Laurie Strodes in this movie? Why are there 2 Dr. Lemon? Fan fiction, maybe. They would never do it, actually, though. Legend Warrior 120, another $10, says, it would be set during Christmas in a city with a high crime. Oh, I see. You're following up with the, I get what you're doing. It would be set during Christmas in a city with a high crime rate where Michael is killing people in alleyways, warehouses, and parks during the night. That's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it becomes more of like a murder mystery kind of thing, but set more like modern times. Kind of sounds like similar to what I was talking about in my film noir in the 50s, which is like a horror murder mystery kind of thing, but it's set back then. Whereas yours, I think you're talking more urban, more modern. Yeah, I don't. Hey, it's an option. Right? It's an option. I don't know how I would feel about that, but it's certainly an option. Geeked Out Turtle Fan 42 sends in $5. Thank you, buddy. Says, crazy idea. You play off the curse of Thorn. There we go. You play off the curse of Thorn idea going back 30 plus years prior to the original murder in Haddonfield. The town is cursed. Yes, I guess that's an idea, but then that would be, would we be saying then that Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are now canon, and now you're doing a prequel to those films? That might be a little confusing for people, and I think the general consensus is for the Curse of Thorn is it's not something I think fans particularly like. Every Halloween movie has its fans. Halloween 5 has its fans. Halloween 6 has its fans. Halloween Resurrection has its fans. Rob Zombie Halloween 2 has its fans. All the ones that we all sort of, pick out as the worst of the series all have their fans. But I don't think that's something they would do. It's an option. And if you are a big fan of Halloween 6, or you do like the Thorn trilogy as they call it, or it's 6 is a favorite of yours or a fan favorite, or you have some sort of nostalgic emotional attachment to it. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying I could see somebody buying into that and saying, yeah, I mean, there's fans out there that still want a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. I've gotten messages from people saying, oh, they should do a sequel to Halloween, and I'm just like, they're not going to do a sequel to Halloween. You're going to be holding out for a very long time. They're not going to do a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. But yeah, I mean, that's an option, dude. It's an option for sure. It's an option. Let me see here. Let me just go see if I can get the Geeked Out Turtle Fan in. Wait, is that it? No. Okay, there we go. Where's our poll right now? Let's see where our poll is. 190 votes. What do you want next for Halloween? Nothing. Let it rest, 24%. Remake, tell the story again. And so that is, you just, 5 years down the road, you just tell the same story again. You know what I mean? So little Michael Myers, 6-year-old, is killed, or he's killed, kills his sister in Halloween night, and then you fast forward 15 years and you have a doctor. You're just telling the same story again, just for a new audience. 9% want that. 9% want that. They just want it again. There's nothing wrong with that. 36% of you want a reimagining, telling it differently. So that's kind of like what we've been talking about here, what Geeked Out Turtle Fan was talking about, what I was talking about in terms of like, you were sort of talking about a prequel, but some of you in there have been sort of talking about revamping the story, and I, if that's where I want to go back to the 50s film noir and tell it during that setting, with a lot of things I've talked about here. That'd be cool. So that's 36%, and 30% want Halloween 3 or anthology films. Fascinating. It's really cool to see where you guys are at. And like I said, if you're watching live or if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know what you would say to Malek Akkad. What would you suggest to him? Pitch it. Pitch it in the comment section below, folks. Let us know. All right, let's see here. Super chat, Happy Sanjo, $2 says, one of your backers had duplicates, great community. Oh, amazing. That's awesome. I love that. That's great. So you're getting one. That's awesome. Geeked Out Turtle Fan follows up, says, what I meant for my idea was there was possibly another shape in the 1930s and 40s. Okay, so well, yeah, of course it wouldn't be Michael Myers because it was before he was born. Another shape, but it's still exploring the cult of Thorn and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that might be a tough sell to the general Halloween fan base, because I think, generally speaking, although we can pick out, and there are people that like it, I think generally speaking, it's not a story that I think most Halloween fans would want to revisit, whether in present day or, 100 years ago. But it is an idea. For sure. Anthony T sends in $5, says, I think Michael should undergo trans surgery and become Michelle, and you could have a whole new series to go down. Well, that's true. You could have a whole new series there. An entire new series. Absolutely. Vinny Mac sends in $1, but retracted his message. Sorry about that, Vinny. Maybe you'll have another one here in a second. Hopefully you will, because I'm curious what your message was, but thank you for the $1. Steve McCoy sends in $2, says, direct sequel to Halloween 4 could be interesting. Why not? That's an option. It is a popular one. It's something that I think and I've talked about it here too. On the channel. But the more that I think about it, I don't think they would do that in theatrical form. But I think it's possible you may get that in a series. I could see them doing like a mini series of that. Where is Jamie Lloyd now? You erase Halloween 5, and it's a direct sequel to Halloween 4, and you bring back Ellie Cornell, and it's like it starts out as like a 6 to 8 part miniseries. If it's hugely successful and does really well, then maybe you continue it. And you have Michael Myers in that. I don't know if that's going to fly theatrically. I just don't know if they would take that risk theatrically. But I think that ship has sailed. I think that, and I understand why they didn't do it again, because we have to understand that, when you are thinking about how to reboot franchises and what to do, you have to appeal to a general audience, and you have to appeal to the fan base, and you have to appeal to your shareholders, and you have to, there's so many bureaucratic decisions that are made by committee, and so there's just so many variables and so many wheels turning. I don't know if, hey, why don't we go back and do a direct sequel to Halloween 4 would pass, even 5 or 6 years ago before Halloween 18. There's reasons why they brought back Laurie Strode as Jamie Lee Curtis. There's reasons why they brought back John Carpenter. It's all part of marketing and selling and probability of success, right? Long-term success. And I know there are a lot of fans, well, I'd go see it. That'd be great. That is true. But I don't know if that sequel, that direct sequel to Halloween 4 would have been the highest grossing slasher movie in motion picture history. Do you know what I mean? There's reasons why they make decisions and, you know, to go certain routes and why they don't. It feels just like a smaller idea. It feels more niche. It feels like a more niche idea to me, even though I love the idea and I think it's great. And I've talked about this on my channel before. But I think the more I think about it, I think that ship has sailed. And that would have been something that maybe would have been explored like in 2015 or 2014. Hey, why don't we erase all the sequels except for 4, you know, and do a direct sequel for, bring back Danielle Harris. Then you can have your Jamie Lloyd and she can be the same Jamie Lloyd, you know, because if she were to come back today and play Jamie Lloyd, she's not even the same Jamie Lloyd. She has no recollection of those films, right? So she could be the same Jamie Lloyd. We can erase Halloween 5, so Rachel is still alive. We bring her back. You know what I'm saying? That's something that I think would have really been fun for fans. But I don't see them doing it now. I don't see them. I'll be honest with you. And you never say never. There's always a chance. I don't know what Malek has up his sleeve. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know where his interests lie. Certainly he wants to keep this going in some sort of capacity. It's his legacy. It's his father's legacy. One of the biggest, most successful, iconic franchises in the history of horror, in the history of motion pictures, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Who knows what he wants to do? But I feel that ship has sort of sailed, at least, like I said, theatrically. Maybe it's something they explore on a smaller scale. I don't know, but it's interesting. But hey, it's an option, right? It's an option. It's interesting. It is interesting. El Bandidos, I think I'm saying that right. El Bandidos sends in €4 or €5 essentially. Just chases somebody. Just Michael chases somebody. In the community of the films, just chases somebody in the community of the films. The question, and we don't care. A one-on-one evil man, nothing more, I think is a win-win. I'm trying to understand exactly what you're saying. I think what you're saying is you just believe that just having Michael chasing somebody in the continuity, I said community, in the continuity of films, the question, and we don't care. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Just chase somebody in the continuity of the films, the question, and we don't care. A one-on-one evil man, nothing more. Yeah, guys, I will say this, be very sort of, I know you only have a certain amount of text depending on the super chat you're sending in, but just try to be more clear. I'm not quite understanding what you mean. So I'm sorry. I don't quite know how to answer that. My instinct says you're basically just saying you just want Michael Myers chasing people in the continuity of the films, and we don't care. It's just an evil man, nothing more. And that's all you want. Like, I'm kind of thinking that's what you mean. My apologies, by the way, if that's not what you mean. But yeah, I'm having trouble deciphering sort of what you're trying to say there. The Violator 862, well, hopefully you're not violating too many people, sends in $9.99, says, I want to see Halloween Returns made. That script would be excellent, especially with a few adjustments. Well, that's interesting, but then where does that leave us, right? So would that be another alternate timeline? Because that really is Halloween Returns is what? Is that a direct sequel to Halloween Resurrection? Or is that a direct sequel to Halloween 2 from 81? Or where does that fall? I can't remember. Or was that a direct sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? I can't remember. I don't particularly care about that, but again, there's another option right there, right? It's another option, folks. Vinnie Mac sent in another $1 and retracted the message. Just to let people know that when you do send in a message and you retract the message, the payment still goes through. So it's not like you've retracted the payment. So you might as well just leave the message up there. Hopefully, Vinny, you can ask again because I'm really curious now what you're saying. Anna M. Pop sends in €10 essentially. Thank you, Anna. Great to see you here. Says, hi, Dave. I don't want a remake on Halloween 1978. The only remake I want to see is to Halloween 3. Halloween 3 has a great story, but poorly executed in my opinion. Okay, fascinating. Yeah, Halloween 3 certainly has, a lot of love, and there's a lot of love for Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I tend to agree with you. I don't think Halloween 3 is a great movie. I think it's a little overrated. I think it's found its love, and that's great. It's got a cult following, but I do think there's a lot of potential there in order to take the story, like you said, and expand on it with a maybe $5 or $10 million budget, something they did not have in 1982, and with modern effects and modern practical effects and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I would be totally open to there being a remake of Season of the Witch. For a lot of people, like I said, that's blasphemous. You can't remake it. It's got to be a sequel. And that's fine. I mean, if you want to do a sequel, okay. Yeah, I think that, a sequel or a remake, but certainly I think there is an opportunity to really sort of, make that movie better. Totally. I mean, maybe you'd be the Top Gun Maverick of Halloween 3. I don't know. I have no idea. But thank you for the super chat, Anna. I really appreciate that. ZC Kroll sends in $5, or ZC Kroll if you're south of the border. Hey, Dave, ever seen Dead Calm? Oh, yes. Dead Calm with Julia. Was it Julia Roberts? Was she in? Nicole Kidman, right? Is it Nicole Kidman I'm thinking of? That's my favorite theater of the mind thriller. The suspense is absolutely off the charts. Highly recommend. I have seen Dead Calm. That's a really good movie. Yeah, you're going. I like how you went hard. You went deep there. Deep cut ZC. Deep cut. I love it. Yeah, that is. Oh man. That's some serious deep cut shit right there. Great film. All right, let me see here. Oh, wait. Dead Calm. Just want to make sure I get these super chats. Vince Tarallo again. I think I'm saying that right. Tarallo. Off topic. That's all right. $4.99. Thank you. What is your favorite courtroom drama? For me, it's A Few Good Men or Lincoln Lawyer. Two great films. The first thing that came into my head was The Client from 1994 or 5 with Tommy Lee Jones and Susan Sarandon, I think. That's a good one. I don't know if this is a courtroom drama. It's more of a jury room drama, but the original 12 Angry Men? Yeah, I think that's what it is. That one's fantastic. There was a remake. There was a TV movie remake in I think 97 or 98 with Tony Danza, which wasn't bad. But the original is fantastic. Again, not courtroom drama, but more of like a jury drama. Still kind of the same thing. That's a great one too. But those are good. A Few Good Men, Lincoln Lawyer. Vinny Mac. Hey, Vinny Mac. All right. Question. Awesome. Vinny, my man, Vinny, coming in. Says, how do you think the mystique of the original Halloween would be today had they taken Carpenter's original talent and made no sequels? I've been asked this question quite a bit. I think Halloween today would be fine. I think I don't think it would have, faded into obscurity or anything like that because of its original pop culture footprint. At the time, it became the highest grossing independent horror movie in motion picture history. Because of that and that alone, and it was very influential. Now, again, it's not the first of its kind. We can go back to, Peeping Tom. We can go back to Psycho. We can go back to the original Black Christmas, of course. But it certainly was about timing. And even though Black Christmas was just 4 years before, it just wasn't the right time yet for a film like Black Christmas to really take off and really sort of, resonate with people. Whereas Halloween had a lot going for it. The music and the mask and the eeriness and all this kind of stuff. There was a lot going for it. And it was just the right time. And it was very influential, and it spawned a lot of imitators, as we know. If it wasn't for Halloween, you wouldn't have had Friday the 13th. I mean, that is directly from Sean S. Cunningham himself. We saw the success of this low-budget $300,000 horror movie that made like $70 million. Like, what the fuck? That's life-changing for, the producers involved. And it's kind of like, well, geez, we want to do that, but we don't do this. So we did Friday the 13th. And then, of course, out of that grew the golden age of slasher movies. So I think if there had only been one Halloween movie, I think that movie still would be revered in the same ways that, even though there's many Psycho sequels, in the same ways that, I'm trying to think of like one movie back then, but a lot of them had sequels. I still think it would be revered today. Because even despite the sequels, the original is very much revered today, but it's primarily because of its pop culture impact and its impact on a specific and almost creation of a specific subgenre of horror. Even though it wasn't the first of its kind, it certainly, it's kind of like, well, maybe this isn't the exact comparison, but you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, right? It's like, so why is Elvis Presley called the king of rock and roll? That kind of music existed before Elvis, right? Especially like, in, the Deep South and the blues and, the black sort of church-going community and all that kind of stuff. And, a lot of the times people accuse Elvis of stealing the music. He didn't steal the music. Elvis was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. He grew up in that culture. He learned that music. He had a great affection for the black community, the culture, the music. He loved them, 100%. But at that time, especially at that time with the racial divide, and it was a very difficult, touchy time. And what Elvis did, whether you like it or not, was he was able to take that music, the rhythm and blues, the rockabilly, the rock and roll, take it to the white people, right? He took it to he made it mainstream. And so that's kind of like what happened with Carpenter. Whereas, I mean, it's not the exact correct analogy, but you see the parallels of what I'm trying to say, right? It's not that movies like Halloween didn't exist before Halloween. They did. But its timing, there was something about Halloween. It was just more relatable, perhaps. It came in at the right time, the right moment, and it just hit hit all the right notes, and voila, you have the spawn of the slasher subgenre, so to speak. So again, not an exact, analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Because we often forget that, the Halloween was the birth of, well, no, I mean, technically there was quite a few movies that were like that before Halloween. So yes, I do believe that it would still hold its cachet. I do believe that. Let me see here. Jordan Ellis sends in a very generous super chat of $49.99. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate that. Says, screw Freddy versus Jason. I want a Halloween film where Busta Rhymes drop kicks Myers through every nearby window, window and wall, etc. for 90 minutes straight. Top tier Halloween night there. Can you imagine? Trick or treat, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat. And you can figure out many different ways he can say trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker, trick-or-treat, motherfucker. And just all this stuff. He's being drop kicked through windows and doors and glass smashing and stuff all over the place, and explosions and things exploding that have no reason to explode and all that kind of stuff. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Hang on, let me get it here. Do I have it here? Do I not have? Oh, there it is. Trick or treat, motherfucker! It's actually me. That's not Bob. I should get the Busta Rhymes soundbite in there. I should. Brandon Haddonfield. Brandon Haddonfield. Is that your real last name? Amazing if it is. Sends in $4.99. Thank you, Brandon. Says, Dave, have you ever seen Once Upon a Crime with John Candy? So hilarious. Yes, I believe I have, but I'm hazy on it. It's not one of John Candy's. I know the movie you're talking about, but I haven't seen it in a very, very long time, a very long time. So it's been a while, or as the kids say today, well, it's not just kids anymore. Everybody's saying it. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. It's been a microsecond. I want that to catch on, damn it. I want it to catch on. It's been a microsecond. It's been a microsecond. Let's check out our poll here. It's been up for 54 minutes now. 235 of you have voted. What do you want next for Halloween? 28% of you so far have said nothing. Let it rest. That means, no, I'm done. I'm good. I've got the good, the bad, the ugly. Just let it rest. I'm okay. I'm content. 28% of you have said that. 10% of you have said, I want a remake. Tell the story again. And what I mean by that is, again, you tell the same story again. You tell a story about a 6-year-old child on Halloween night who kills his sister. He goes to the sanitarium for 15 years. Dr. Loomis, an old guy with a goatee, and he escapes on Halloween night. He goes back. He kills Linda, Bob. I mean, like, you just remake the movie again, but you tell it. You tell the same story again. 10% of you want that. That's fair. Okay. 36% of you want what I want, which is the reimagining and telling it from a different perspective. So maybe you tell that story, but you go back to the 50s, and Loomis is not a psychiatrist, he's a detective, and maybe Michael and Judith are the same age in high school, that kind of thing, right? So you're telling the story again, but you're reimagining it. You know what I mean? And listen, not every reimagining can fail. I mean, there can be some real impressive reimaginings of some stories out there that make you go, wow, that was really good. That was really good. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want. And of course, you could remake it as well, and it could be great too. All these ideas could be great. And then 26% of you want a Halloween 3 anthology film or anthology films in general. So 28%, 10%, 37%, 26%, 240 votes. Fascinating. Can't wait to see where this ends up at the end. Okay, lots of super chats coming in today. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing. Let me see here. Got that one. And then Matthew Farisi sends in $4.99, says, I'd like to see what the Duffer Brothers could do with a Nightmare on Elm Street TV series. Season 4 Stranger Things had a nightmare vibe for sure. It definitely did. Yep, for sure it did. And obviously having Robert Englund in there playing Victor Creel in that one episode, kind of helps. It's like, oh, there's Robert Englund. I don't know what the Duffer Brothers are going to do next. I was reading an article not too long ago. They are doing something. They're attached to do something. I don't know if it's Marvel or it's something like that. It's like a property thing. I'm not sure what they're attached to do. I don't know if I'd want to see the Duffer Brothers do a Nightmare on Elm Street. It's not that I don't think they could do it, but even though Stranger Things season 4 is more horror, let's just put it this way. It wouldn't be the next thing I would have them do. If I was in charge of the rights, if I had the rights, if I was a big wig at a studio, based on Stranger Things season 4, for me, I wouldn't hand them the keys to Freddy Krueger. I would want to produce a horror film with them, something away from Stranger Things, because even though it does have an Elm Street vibe, these shows are still very much horror light. Do you know what I mean? Like they're very, yes, season 4 is darker, 100%. It's much darker than season 1, 2, or 3, of course. But it's still got the kid, it's still got that, that fun kind of, because of the kind of show it is, right? I mean, they're going to go to certain lengths. And who knows? I mean, I still haven't seen season or episode 7 and 8 of volume 2 yet of season 4. Maybe they go crazy dark and it's like I'm watching fucking, Insidious or something, or The Conjuring, you know what I mean? But I would want to produce a Insidious level, Conjuring level, Saw level, something. I'm not saying those movies. I'm saying something away from the child kid stuff, and do something way more adult. And way more mature with them first to see how they handle that material before I give them the keys to Elm Street. But I certainly think they've earned that right. I think the Duffer Brothers have earned the right to have that opportunity to do a more adult horror movie away from, Stranger Things. Because for me, Stranger Things season 4 it's not Goosebumps. I mean, it's much darker than that, but it's like a very dark version of Goosebumps. Do you know what I mean? Because it's still dealing with kids and that kind of stuff. I know people are probably going to disagree. Like, I'm not saying it's Goosebumps. That's way too light. That's like kitty kid stuff. But I think you know what I'm trying to say, right? There's a bit of a difference there. Even though it's very dark and the effects are great, and what's his name, the Ven, whatever his name is, looks great, and he looks like 100%. The way he's reached, it's awesome. It's awesome. I think it's just everything else that's around it. It's still Stranger Things. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, I'd want to see them do a horror movie though, for sure, 100%. Don Shanks is in the house. Sends in $9.99, says, I would like to see a proper Halloween 78 remake. You would, Don? Then if it's successful, we can get a Halloween 2, 3, and 4 remake. Thoughts? Well, yeah. I mean, a proper Halloween 78 remake. Yeah, that's an option. I wouldn't be against that, but it's not something I want to see now. Like I said at the top of the show today, in maybe if 20 years goes by or 30 years goes by, and who knows where we'll be in the consumption of our entertainment. I mean, the way we make movies and the way we consume movies might be very, very different then. It might be more of a virtual reality experience. But for the sake of argument, let's say the world is like it is today, and we're still going to movie theaters and that kind of stuff, and still making movies the same way. Then I might be open to that, because a whole generation has gone by. And now, like I said at the top of the show today, you are reintroducing it to a new audience. You're reintroducing the story to a new audience. So it makes sense to tell the same story again. But if you want to reboot Halloween just like 5 years from now, why are we doing this again? So we're just going to tell the same story again 5 years from now? I think it's a missed opportunity. I think if you want to do that, then you tell it from a different perspective. That doesn't mean it's going to be successful, but there's more of an opportunity there for people to go, rather than just the same thing again, that's how I feel anyway. But I'm open to that, Don. I'm open to that, just not now. I think it's too soon. The Violator 862 $1.99, thank you, says maybe another shot at a direct sequel to H2. So I guess well, I guess maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that water, or that well has run dry. I mean, I guess maybe for those who don't like, I mean, we have 3 sequels now to Halloween. No, we have 2 sequels to We have 2 sequels to Halloween 2, because it's Halloween 4 and H2O. And then we have now 2 sequels to the original Halloween 2 and Halloween 18. So a direct sequel to Halloween 2, so essentially erasing Halloween 4. At that point, I would say you might as well just do a direct sequel to Halloween 4. Unless you don't like Halloween 4 and the direction of where it went. But yeah, at that point, I would say maybe you just do the sequel to Halloween 4. But hey, but again, I like that you guys are thinking about this. I love the discussion. I can't wait to see some of the comments in the comment section below. I really like how you guys are thinking about this, and like I said, what are some of the things that you would pitch to Malek Akkad? The rights go back to him at the end of Halloween Ends. At least as of right now, according to Jason Blum, that's what happens. I'll be very curious to see, what direction he takes it. So, and what direction you guys want him to take it. ZC Kroll, $2, and says, we need a Freddy trick or treat motherfucker, please. A Freddy trick or treat motherfucker. I see what you're saying. So, Freddie would be like, trick or treat, motherfucker. Trick or treat, motherfucker. Something like that, right? Somewhere in there. It's kind of the same way of, or the same route as, help yourself, fucker. Trick or treat, motherfucker. You'd want to say it like he did in part 2. You know what I mean? Imagine he said that instead of, help yourself, fucker. Instead of saying that, he's like, trick or treat, motherfucker. That'd be funny. Riker H sends in $2, says, why Indonesia give Revenge of the Sith an R rating? I have no idea. You would have to look into the reasons and the criteria for that part of the world. I don't know, Riker. I don't know. Legend Warrior 120 sends in $10 and says, another idea is having kids in clown costumes killing their siblings. When questioned, they say it was the boogeyman in a white mask who told them to do it. So another idea is having kids in clown costumes killing their siblings. And questions, that's out of the box. That's out of the box. That's interesting. That's an idea. That's not a story. Obviously, you'd have to develop a story around that and proper motivations and, sequence of events and things like that. But what you've given me here is sort of a log line maybe or something. It's interesting. I could see that being more of like an anthology, like maybe like a little, like an anthology story, like maybe like a series, and they tell, half-hour anthology type creepy stories. Do you know what I mean? I could see that being something like that. Riker H, $2 says, can Season of the Witch fit in OG Halloween timeline? No, it can't. It can, but you have to explain then why the original Halloween is on the television as a movie in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch twice. We have to remember that Tom Atkins, when he's tied up in that room, is watching Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode on the television. He's watching Halloween. He sees the commercial for it at the bar. So no, I don't think it can. I think you'd have to really start asking your audience to go through mental gymnastics and hoops to try and justify why Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, is canon in this new timeline. That doesn't mean you couldn't introduce some sort of Silver Shamrock angle, which they're not going to do, by the way. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't do it. But you would have to make it very clear that this is not connected to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which would be hard to do because as soon as you hear Silver Shamrock and instantaneously we think Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. And why wouldn't we? Right? So that's just a whole other thing you'd have to oh God, it's just exhausting. It's unnecessary. So why do it? Halloween, we sometimes forget. Halloween, the original Halloween, is a movie in Halloween 3's universe, which means Jamie Lee Curtis is an actress somewhere out there in that movie. I don't know. Not going to work for me. One sec here. Okay. Vince, another $9.99, my man, says, starred in 1966. Laurie kills Judith on Halloween, and Michael grows up to become a child psychologist or psychiatrist, inspired by what happened to his sisters, and becomes the new Loomis. So Laurie kills Judith on Halloween and grows up. Oh, interesting. Again, that's an idea, not necessarily a story. I have to fill in those gaps and all that kind of stuff, but it's an interesting it's an interesting take. I don't think that would be what I would pitch, but again, I like that you guys are thinking outside the box. I like that you guys are thinking about all this stuff. Really cool. All right, another 5 minutes or so left in the show. Booster Seed sends in $5, says, holy cow, Steven Spielberg is producing The Fabelmans, Tiny Toons, The New Gremlins 3, and Ant-Man 4. This year is insane for Spielberg. Spielberg is, if you go to his IMDb, he's producing and executive producing a lot of stuff. Spielberg is at, as I've often said, being a producer or an executive producer in film can absolutely mean something for sure, but it can also mean absolutely nothing. especially when you get to the level of a Spielberg, which, you know, he's put on as a executive producer or a producer, but at the end of the day, whether he's boots on the ground or not, who knows? Now, The Fabelmans, yes, because that's a movie he's directing. That's sort of a semi-biographical biopic of Spielberg's life. I can't wait to see that. Sounds fantastic. So yes, that's a movie that he would definitely be boots on the, because he's directing it, right? So him as a producer on that film, for sure. But things like Gremlins 3, Ant-Man's 4, Tiny Toons, and all the other films you'll see on his IMDb, you know, there's going to be some that he's going to have some attention to, and there's going to be others that he's a phone call. You know, he's a phone call if you need to talk to him, kind of thing. But he's a name. He's one of the most iconic names in the history of cinema. You know, I mean, as I've often said, Spielberg is a synonym for movies. Spielberg is a synonym for Hollywood. You say the name Spielberg and the cachet that it brings to any project is, well, beyond any other name in the history of the business. Period. Still to this day, because he's a godfather. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really say much. He also produced a lot of the Transformers movies too, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, just saying, you know, sometimes it's just, yeah, sure. It's different in television, as I've often said. Executive producers in television, which are often called showrunners, the showrunner of a television show is a big deal, is a huge deal, because more often than not, directors will change from season to season or even episode to episode. Sometimes a director will come in, they will do a few episodes and then leave. It's the showrunner that is keeping sort of the structural narrative and the consistency and the flow and everything all intact for the season. It's their show, really, at the end of the day. So in television, it really matters. In film, it's more of it's a bit different. Again, that doesn't mean that, you know, it's generally speaking, right? It's basically what I'm saying. All right, David Lee Barron sends in $4.99, says, imagine if they put the silly cop cartoon music from H5 and Halloween Ends. I'd laugh my ass off. Oh, God. Can you imagine if they did that? Oh, my God, that'd be awful. Mark Williams, $9.99, says, hey, Dave, I would like to see a new take on Halloween. Perhaps change up the genre. Make it more a drama horror in the vein of Silence of the Lambs. And don't call it Halloween, maybe Haddonfield. Well, that might be interesting for a series, right? I could see that being maybe a series or something like that. You know, I could see that. Again, I think there's a lot of opportunity for a series in the Halloween universe. That doesn't mean necessarily the Michael Myers universe, but I could certainly seeing it being, in the Halloween universe per se. I could definitely see that. It's interesting. I like that, Mark. You know, a lot to explore there. You know, a lot to explore. I would probably say, oh, interesting. You know, I'd say, okay, flesh me out. I would say, if you were pitching that to me, I'd say to you, oh, that's interesting. Give me a 1-page treatment, 1 or 2-page treatment, you know, and sort of flesh out more of this idea and the arc of the story. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting. Let me see. Frank Riker, my man. Frank Riker sends in $5 for the sexy MFers in the chat. You guys and gals rock. I'm just typing to use up my 150 letter, my 150 letters allowed for what $5 can get, which is right about. I love it, Frank. I love it. I thought you were going to say, here's some money. Is Cody Snyder in the chat? That was one of my favorite super chats of all time, was just, here's some money. Let's take a look at the poll here. Let's end this poll now. Here we go. We're going to end the poll now. We are ending the ending the poll, and the final results are about to pop up here in the chat room. There they are. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you want next from Halloween? A reimagining and telling it differently, 35%. So most of you, out of 267 of you who have voted, want the reimagining and telling it differently, 35%. 28% of you want nothing, just to let it rest. Just 28% of you. Halloween 3 anthology film. Halloween 3 and or the anthology film route, 23% of you. And a remake, tell the story again. I just want a remake, tell the same story again, 11% of you. Fascinating stuff. I like these polls because they give you a little bit of a window and a little bit of insight into maybe what my viewers or what Halloween viewers out there are feeling. So make sure to comment below and let me know your thoughts. Continue the discussion below. I want the discussion there. Get your pitch. Pitch to Malek Akkad below. Malek, if you're watching, read the comments below. Maybe you might get some ideas. I'm just saying, Malek, the pitch room, the writer's room is below in the comment section. Do it now, ladies and gentlemen. Well, when we're done here. Let me see. Vince, $9.99. Vince says, maybe a meta Halloween. Franchise superfans from a murder cult where they kill dressed as Mike to show their love and dedication to Michael and the franchise, much like in Scream 5. That might be fun, although I don't know if it would work. You know, I question the parallels with Scream or the parallels with, 13 Fanboy, of course, that independent film written and directed by Deborah Voorhees. I don't know, but I appreciate the spirit of what you're trying to say because, you're thinking outside the box and you're thinking to yourself, well, we can't just do the same thing. Although there are, like I said, 11%, man. 11% of the votes today were like, yes, let's just do the same thing over again. Believe it or not, there are a lot of Halloween fans out there that simply just want, Michael Myers movies and just to reboot it indefinitely. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if that is somebody, if you are somebody that wants that, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not what I want. It's not what I would do, but there's nothing wrong with wanting that for sure. So, but I don't know. It seems like it might be a little too out of the box, Vince. It might just be a little too out of the box. But hey, again, it is an option. It is an option. All right. I think I have got all the super chats. There was a lot of super chats that came in today. Thank you, everybody that sent in super chats today. I really appreciate that very much. Sincerely, I really do. Wasn't able to get to some of the non-super chats today because of how busy it was. Again, for obvious reasons, I have to answer the super chats for obvious reasons. So I think we're good here. I think I've got them all. I think I have. Oh, Darren from the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast making his way into the chat late, but better than never. Better than ever. All right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this Friday afternoon. You are all amazing. You know you are. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And of course, I will be back Monday evening with another episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, where Tony and I are breaking down our thoughts on Volume 1 of Season 4 of Stranger Things. That's right, Stranger Things Season 4. Big discussion on Monday night. Hope you will join us for that. Thank you to, of course, my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it very much. You are all amazing, and I sincerely mean this. Everybody who watches me, you are all amazing. Whether you agree with me or not, whether you don't like me or you do like me. It's okay not to like me. I get it. I'm just saying that I appreciate you watching and I appreciate you contributing to the community and giving me your thoughts below. I sincerely mean that. And keep the discussion going below. Tell me what you would say to Malek Akkad if you had the opportunity. The rights are reverting back to him after Halloween ends. Blumhouse is done. As of right now, you never know. With new information, this could change. But tell me what you would say to Malek below. Keep the discussion below. Keep the discussion going below. All right, folks. And hey, if you want to follow me on my social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, there are my links below there. And of course, all my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. All right, folks. In the meantime and between time, cheers.